Have you ever felt your peace stolen by the smallest thing, a word, a glance, a silence that echoes louder than any shout? It happens in a moment. Someone frowns, and your heart sinks. A car horn blares, and suddenly your blood boils. A partner doesn't reply, and your mind spins wild stories until you're fighting ghosts that don't even exist. You walk through the day like a fortress built of sand, one wave away from collapse. I've seen it ruin lives. A man convinced he was about to be fired when his boss merely asked for help. Hours of torment born not from reality, but from the storm in his own head. He discovered too late that the enemy wasn't his boss, nor his partner, nor the world. It was the part of himself that handed away his calm every time he reacted. The Stoics called it slavery of the soul, being ruled by every passing mood, chained to the opinions and gestures of others. They believed true freedom begins the moment you stop letting outside chaos dictate your inner state. Anger and anxiety may knock, but you no longer open the door. This is not a soft lesson, it cuts deep. But if you've ever longed to stand firm while the storm rages, to feel untouchable inside even as the world shakes, then stay with me. What follows may change the way you see your mind forever. As we step into the first chapter, let me paint you a picture you've probably lived 100 times. You send a message, you wait, and the silence stretches too long. Suddenly, your chest tightens, your throat dries, and your mind begins to spin stories. You feel abandoned, as if someone's absence in the digital world meant you had been exiled from life itself. Or think of standing in line at the supermarket when someone cuts in front of you. You want to speak, but your mouth locks, your face burns, and your heart beats, as if survival itself depended on this tiny moment. Or that sharp blast of a car horn in traffic that jolts you so violently that you grip the steering wheel until your knuckles ache. Tell me, have you noticed this truth? In those moments, it feels like you're about to die. And yet, you are not. Nothing in the world has truly harmed you. It is your brain, that ancient machine wired for survival, still convinced that you live in a tribe where rejection means death, still certain that a frown or a silence is no different than a tiger's roar in the grass. That is why your heart races, why your breath shortens. It believes danger has come for you. But danger has not come, only a shadow, only an interpretation. The Stoics saw this long before neuroscience gave it a name. Epictetus, born a slave, knew what it meant to live with the threat of punishment or dismissal at every moment. And yet he wrote, "We are not affected by what happens, but by how we interpret it." Think of the clarity of that line. A man beaten, chained, silenced, and still he insists that the event is not what breaks us. It is the story we tell ourselves about the event. Now imagine him in our modern world. Imagine Epictetus in an office, his boss glancing at him and saying, "We'll talk later." You know the panic most of us would feel. The instant storm. In your head, you would already be rehearsing your resignation, explaining to your parents that you had failed, picturing yourself selling trinkets on a beach just to survive. And all the while, nothing had happened. Only words, only a glance, only your own mind spinning its tale. But what would Epictetus do? He would raise an eyebrow, nod, and return to his writing. Why? Because he had mastered the art of interpretation. To him, "We'll talk later" was not a threat. It was simply noise, a fact without weight. This is the chain you must learn to break. Because if you do not, you will live like Daniel, a man I once knew, who reacted to every ripple in the water as if it were a tidal wave. If a car honked, he roared back. If his boss frowned, he spiraled into dread. If his partner grew silent, he picked a fight. He was a sandcastle in a storm, collapsing again and again. Until one day, after a meaningless panic, he stumbled into a bookstore and opened a ragged copy of the handbook by Epictetus. The words hit him like thunder. As long as you care what others think of you, you are their slave. He saw himself in those lines. He realized every panic had been his own creation, and that night he slept like a free man for the first time. So here is the first lesson. Your brain believes there is danger where there is none. It reacts as though you were still on the savannah, hunted and cornered. But you are not in a jungle anymore. You are in an office, a supermarket, a city street. The threat is not real. The danger is not here. And once you understand this, you can begin to teach your brain the difference. How? The Stoics offer two weapons, clarity and choice. Clarity begins when you name what is happening inside you. When your palms sweat, when your stomach knots, when your mind races like a horse out of control, whisper to yourself, "This is not a threat." Write it on a note and place it on your desk if you must. Modern thinkers call this labeling, but the Stoics called it reason, the power to give things their proper names. Marcus Aurelius practiced this in his meditations. He said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That was his way of breaking the illusion, of reminding himself that the fear was his interpretation, not reality. The second weapon is choice. When panic demands that you act, send another email, apologize excessively, defend yourself without cause, choose the opposite. Rise slowly, get a glass of water, breathe, return with composure. Let your actions contradict your impulses. For every time you do this, you carve a new path in your mind, teaching it that not every noise is a lion, not every silence is exile. And here lies the deeper truth. Calm is not a gift you stumble upon. It is a discipline trained like a muscle. Each time you refuse to be dragged into fear, you strengthen it. Each time you smile while your brain screams of danger, you are breaking chains centuries old. Soon, you will discover a serenity that no glance, no word, no silence can steal. That is freedom, not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of mastery. So I ask you now, how many times today did you hand away your calm? How many times did you let another person's glance, another delay, another horn on the road command your inner world? If the number stings, do not despair. It is the sting that tells you it is time to change. The next time fear rises, pause, name it. Choose differently. And remind yourself, as Epictetus reminded himself 2,000 years ago, you are free when no one else governs your peace. That is where the journey begins. That is where your fortress is built. And as we move forward, you will see how each lesson hardens the walls of that fortress until nothing can breach it. Not anger, not anxiety, not even the storms of life itself. Moving into the second chapter, let me take you into a room most of us have sat in, full of laughter, chatter, and the clinking of plates. Then, out of nowhere, a voice cuts through the warmth with words sharpened like knives. "Oh, look who finally arrived on time. A miracle." Or, "Of course, nobody expects anything from you because you're not worth expecting anything from." Everyone hears it. Some laugh nervously, others lower their eyes. And you, your chest tightens, your jaw locks, your blood surges upward like a sudden flame. We all know this moment. The insult is not just in the words, but in how they're delivered, right in front of others. You feel exposed, like standing without armor in the middle of the arena. Your first instinct? To strike back. To wound them deeper than they wounded you, to remind them of their failures, their betrayals, their weaknesses. that sharp retort already burns on your tongue. But if you let it out, you're in their game. You've stepped into the mud they threw at your feet. It happened to me once at a family dinner. The table was alive with laughter, with bread being passed around, with the easy joy of people eating together. And then my uncle, with his mouth still full, decided to make me his joke. No wonder you don't have a partner with that personality. Who could stand you? The words echoed louder than the clatter of cutlery. I felt the heat in my face, the old urge to defend, to strike back. The perfect counterattack came to mind, his third divorce, a line so sharp it could silence the whole table. But I didn't say it. Instead, I stood up, walked to the salad bowl, and served myself more lettuce, chewed slowly, kept my head high. And in that silence I watched the laughter die in their throats. Eyes looked down. Forks scraped awkwardly. My silence spoke louder than any comeback ever could. Now imagine this happening to you. You're at a wedding. Your partner, in front of your friends, throws out a sarcastic jab. Of course, always have to wait for you, as usual. A little dagger wrapped in humor. Everyone laughs, some genuinely, some with that uneasy chuckle of people who don't want to be caught in the middle. And you feel your skin burn, your fists tighten, the urge to fire back with something devastating. But instead, you take a slow sip from your glass, let a faint smile touch your lips, and meet their eyes with calm. That silence unsettles the room more than any insult ever could. In that moment, you didn't just avoid being dragged down, you left them dangling in their own poison. Marcus Aurelius understood this with piercing clarity. He wrote, "Each person acts according to what they know and who they are. Do not be angry with them. Have compassion." He wasn't writing from a safe distance. He was emperor, surrounded by betrayal, envy, mockery, on the battlefield, in the Senate, even in his own household. And still, when insulted, he chose silence. Not because he was weak, but because he was free. He would not hand over his peace to another man's temper. Here's the paradox the Stoics teach us. Silence is not submission. It is strategy. It is restraint sharpened into a weapon. When you stay quiet in the face of scorn, you are not losing. You are forcing the other to listen to their own echo. It is like holding up a mirror. They see themselves more clearly than they ever expected. The power of silence is not abstract philosophy. It is a discipline you can practice. The next time the words burn in your throat, try this. Pause for 5 seconds. Not 1, not 2, 5 long, heavy seconds. Let that silence expand until the other person feels it pressing back on them. In those seconds, the fire that was about to leap from your mouth begins to cool. And more importantly, they begin to hear themselves. Few people can endure repeating their insult when confronted by calm silence. And if the fire still shakes inside you, if your jaw still trembles, then turn silence into a question, not aggressive, but sharp in its clarity. Could you repeat that? Simple words. Yet, how many people can repeat their cruelty under the cold light of calm? Very few. And those who do, they only expose themselves further, showing everyone present who they really are. There are other questions, too, that hold a mirror without venom. Did you say that to offend me? Or how did you want me to feel when you said that? Even, does saying that make you feel better? These are not attacks. They are quiet blades, cutting through the noise, and you'll watch as their bravado collapses under the weight of their own pettiness. My friend, understand this. Anyone can shout. Anyone can insult. Anyone can react. But the one who holds silence when it burns, that person is untouchable. They cannot be dragged into another's chaos. They cannot be ruled by another's noise. That is not weakness. That is mastery. Seneca once said that true strength is shown not by anger, but by the ability to stay unshaken. Think about it. When you remain silent at the very moment when shouting would feel the easiest, you are proving that no one else holds the reins of your soul. You are not a puppet of provocation. You are the master of yourself. And so I leave you with this. The next time someone tries to bait you, remember, your silence is not surrender. It is sovereignty. Stay quiet when it hurts the most, and you'll discover a power that anger will never give you. That is how you become immune, not only to insults, but to the poison of anxiety that always follows them. This is where strength begins to harden. And from here, we step into the next lesson, where silence becomes more than just defense. It becomes the art of reshaping the world around you. Advancing to the third chapter, let me ask you a question that cuts deeper than it seems. Why do you keep handing away your peace as if it were a glass of water at a crowded party? Every time someone provokes you and you explode, you've given them control. And the worst part is, you don't even realize it. Think of how little it sometimes takes. A dirty look, a sarcastic comment, one careless remark, and suddenly you're no longer yourself. You're a puppet pulled by the strings of someone else's mood. Doesn't that sting when you see it clearly? That your calm, the most precious possession you have, is being auctioned off to whoever raises their voice first. Now picture this. You've had a brutal day. Work piled up. Your head is heavy with worries, your neck tight from stress. All you want is to buy your groceries, get home, and shut the door behind you. Then it happens. A stranger behind you rams their cart into your side and snaps. Can you hurry up? In an instant, your blood boils. 1,000 biting replies leap into your mouth, and for a moment, you're ready to unload not just on them, but on the whole world. But stop and ask, if you do it, what just happened? For that minute, that stranger became your master. Their words determined your state. Their mood dictated your behavior. They ruled you. And the question is, do they really deserve that power? Socrates once walked the streets of Athens and was insulted at length by a man who shouted every cruelty he could think of. Onlookers expected Socrates to fire back, but he remained calm, silent, unbothered. Later, someone asked him why he hadn't responded. He smiled and said, "If a donkey kicked me, would I sue it?" With one sentence, he made it clear. It is not about winning arguments. It's about refusing to step down into the mud. If a donkey kicks, it's not because it has plotted against you. It's simply doing what donkeys do. And so it is with people. Some know nothing but to kick, to spit, to throw venom, because that's what fills their hearts. The choice is yours. Will you join them in their chaos or remain sovereign over yourself? This, my friend, is the essence of Stoic discipline. No one controls your peace unless you hand them the keys. The insult in the supermarket, the colleague rolling their eyes, the relative who cannot resist a cruel joke at dinner. They are all invitations, invitations to chaos, and you decide whether to accept. The modern psychologist Guy Winch calls this emotional hygiene. He says, caring for your emotional state is as essential as brushing your teeth. You would never let someone shove dirt into your mouth. So why let them stuff filth into your mind? Why let their words linger inside you, corroding your spirit? Keep your inner world clean. Keep your calm untouchable. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote in his Meditations, "When day breaks, remind yourself Today I will meet the insolent, the ungrateful, the deceitful, the arrogant, the envious, the unsociable. All this happens because they are ignorant of good and evil. Notice what he's doing. He isn't surprised when people misbehave. He prepares for it in advance. He expects it. And because he expects it, he is not shaken when it comes. This is a practice you can use starting tomorrow. Before walking into a meeting, before entering a tense family gathering, say to yourself, "Today, nothing and no one steals my calm." By preparing your mind, you remove the element of surprise. And when the sting comes, as it always does, you can nod, breathe, and let the words pass through you like bubbles that pop and vanish in the air. Think of that image. Bubbles. They rise, they shimmer, they pop, and they are gone. Words are no different. They may grab your attention for a second, but if you refuse to hold on, they leave no trace. Do not collect them. Do not carry them like stones in your pocket. Let them pop and disappear. And yet, even with practice, you will sometimes fail. Even Marcus admitted that he failed. You will lose control. You will snap back. You will let anger take the reins. But here lies another Stoic truth. Do not punish yourself twice. If you lose your calm, forgive yourself quickly. Return to your center. Like the sea after a storm, you too can return to calm without self-blame. There is freedom in this way of living. To walk through the world unruled by strangers, unbroken by insults, unshaken by moods that are not your own. To look at a man screaming and think, he is doing what he knows, I will not join him. That is mastery. That is peace. But do not mistake this peace for passivity. It is not weakness, it is strength. It is far harder to hold your tongue than to unleash it. It is far harder to stay calm than to explode, but each time you refuse to hand away your peace, you carve strength deeper into your character. Each time you stay centered, you train your mind to know, I am the one who rules here. So let me ask you, in what situation do you lose your calm the most? Is it traffic? Is it at work? Is it at home? Bring that moment to mind now. Picture it clearly, and then say quietly to yourself, even there, no one rules my peace. This is the practice. To repeat it until it becomes a shield that no insult, no glance, no word can pierce. Because each time you choose not to react, you are proving something profound. You are free. Free from their noise, free from their venom, free from the chaos that once pulled you under. That is the victory Stoicism offers, not over others, but over yourself. So carry this truth with you. No one rules over your peace unless you hand them the keys. Guard those keys as you would guard your life. For in truth, they are your life. And when you keep them safe, when you hold them close, you walk through the world like a fortress, calm, untouchable, unruled. From here, the path only deepens, because once you've claimed your peace, the question becomes, how do you live so steadily, so grounded, that even suffering itself cannot break you? That is the lesson waiting in the next chapter. At this stage, let's step into one of the most subtle prisons we build for ourselves. It's invisible, but it weighs heavy. It's the belief that every look, every laugh, every silence is aimed at us. You know that feeling, the sense that you're under a spotlight no one else can see, scanning every corner of the room for signs that you've become the target. It's exhausting. And yet, so many of us live like this every single day. Have you ever walked into a room and noticed two people whispering in the corner, only to feel your stomach twist because you were certain they were talking about you? Or heard laughter across the street and suddenly thought you must be the joke? It feels as if you're carrying a satellite dish on your head. tuned in to every signal, interpreting every flicker of expression as proof that you are being judged. You walk with this dish, scanning, catching, interpreting, and the more you listen, the louder the static becomes. But here is the truth, and it might sting before it sets you free. Not everything is about you. In fact, most things are not. People are rarely thinking about you at all. And though your ego may kick and scream at that idea, though part of you may even feel insulted by the irrelevance, it's actually the greatest relief you could ever give yourself. Now imagine this. You're at the gym, squatting with all your concentration fixed on keeping your balance. Out of the corner of your eye, you see two people laughing and looking in your direction. Suddenly, heat rises up your back, your grip tightens on the bar, and your mind goes into overdrive. Are they mocking my form, my shirt? Do I look ridiculous? In seconds, your heart is pounding, your breath uneven, and your set is ruined. All because you believed the story your mind wrote, that you were the center of their attention. Yet what you didn't know was that the two of them were laughing about a video on their phones, a cat salsa dancing on TikTok. It had nothing to do with you. How many times have you lived this scene, convinced you were the villain in someone else's story, only to later realize they weren't thinking of you at all? Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, gave us a timeless key. Remove the opinion, and you remove the "I am harmed." Remove the "I am harmed," and the harm itself disappears. What does this mean? That most of our suffering is born not from what others do, but from the way we interpret it. When you believe every frown is about you, you are not reacting to reality, you are reacting to ghosts. Think about it. People act from their own wounds, their own fears, their own hidden battles. The driver who cut you off wasn't trying to insult you, they were lost in their own panic. The friend who didn't reply wasn't plotting against you. They were buried under their own storms. Most of the time you are a passing shadow in their day, nothing more, and that's not an insult, it's liberation. But I know it isn't easy. The ego wants to be at the center, even if the role it plays is the victim. That's why we invent scripts in our minds. Brené Brown calls it the story I'm telling myself. It's a powerful phrase because it forces us to pause and ask, is this really true, or is it just a story I've created? He didn't reply, so he must hate me. She yawned, so she must be bored with me. They laughed, so I must be the joke. Stories, nothing more, and the more you believe them, the more you chain yourself to anxiety that never needed to exist. Let me share another scene. You're walking down the street. A stranger frowns as they pass you. Instantly you ask yourself, what did I do? Did I look strange? Did I offend somehow? But the truth is, that stranger may have been thinking about their unpaid bills, their sick child, their own regrets. You became a canvas onto which their mood was projected, but none of it was truly about you, and yet you carried it as if it were. The Stoics understood this trap. Epictetus reminded his students that most of what people say or do is outside your control and therefore irrelevant to your inner state. He insisted that freedom comes when you stop trying to manage the perceptions of others and instead govern your own mind. Anxiety dissolves the moment you realize you are not the main character in everyone else's play. So, what do you do the next time you feel that satellite dish buzzing, searching for signals? First, breathe. Step back. Remember Marcus. Remove the opinion. Ask yourself, is this real, or is this just a story I'm telling myself? Most of the time, it's the latter. And once you see it as a story, you can stop living inside it. If you're still unsure, there is power in asking directly. If it's someone you trust, say gently, "Hey, was that about me?" More often than not, the answer will surprise you. No, not at all. And in that moment, the ghost vanishes. If you don't feel comfortable asking, then practice letting go. Drop the drama. Return to your squats. Focus on what is actually yours to control: your breath, your posture, your effort. Everything else is noise. Because here's the secret: once you stop imagining that you are the center of everyone's thoughts, a wide calm opens inside you. The paranoia lifts, the static quiets. You realize you are free, not because the world has changed, but because your interpretation has. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Remember that. Each time you catch yourself spinning stories, pause and repeat it. You will find that most of what disturbs you is born in your own mind, not in the eyes of others. So here is the challenge I leave with you. The next time laughter erupts nearby, resist the urge to write yourself into the scene. The next time silence falls in a conversation, don't assume you are its cause. Step out of the paranoia. Step back into your own lane. Live lightly. Live freely. Because not everything is about you. And not everything deserves your energy. The day you realize this, not just in your head, but in your bones, is the day anxiety begins to dissolve. That is when you become master of your peace, untouchable by the ghosts of other people's expressions. And from here, the path deepens further. Because once you learn that not everything revolves around you, the next question emerges. How do you build a strength so steady that even real attacks cannot shake it? That, my friend, is where we go next. Entering the 5th chapter, picture a room so tense it feels like even the walls are holding their breath. A courtroom packed to the edges, murmurs rising like a swarm of bees, eyes fixed on the man walking to the center, Nelson Mandela. He had already endured months of imprisonment. He knew what awaited him. No way out. In the front row, his mother tried to hold back her tears. In the back, policemen stared at him as if he were already buried. The judge, with a dry and distant voice, asked him if he had anything to say before being sentenced. Mandela took a slow breath, raised his head, and let a small smile cross his face. He stood as if none of it could touch him. Then, with a voice calm yet unshakable, he declared, "I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination, and I am prepared to die." In that instant, the entire room froze. No one moved. Even those who despised him felt the weight of that serenity. Because it wasn't indifference, it was power. That moment carved a truth into history. A man with a calm mind is more dangerous than 1,000 men shouting. Now, you may think this kind of strength only belongs in great battles or historic trials, but it belongs to you too. It belongs in the ordinary storms of daily life. You don't need a courtroom to test it. All it takes is an ordinary day, an ordinary line at the bank. You've been waiting half an hour. Your phone buzzes in your pocket, tempting you with escape. The line isn't moving. The man in front of you suddenly erupts, yelling at the teller. His anger pours out like acid, and the fumes reach you. Your hands clench into fists. Your chest tightens. A voice inside your head screams, "Say something! Join in! Don't just stand there!" In seconds, a stranger and a trivial delay have stolen your calm. This is the trap Marcus Aurelius warned us about. In Meditations, he wrote, "If something external disturbs you, it is not the thing itself that troubles you, but your judgment of it." Do you see? It's not the line, it's not the shouting man, it's the story you tell yourself about the moment. That story decides whether you remain steady or collapse. If Marcus had been in that bank, I imagine him smiling and whispering to himself. Lines also train patience and legs. Simple, direct, disarming, because he understood what we forget. Disturbances outside are powerless until you grant them entrance. Here's the challenge. Will you stand firm when the storm comes? Because it will come. The storms never stop. But your calm, your center, is not up for sale unless you decide it is. So, how do you practice standing firm? 3 steps. Simple in words, difficult in discipline. First, prepare yourself beforehand. Each morning when you get dressed, sharpen your mind like a sword before battle. Quietly remind yourself, today I will meet impatient people, rude people, people fighting battles I cannot see, and none of it will take my calm. This isn't pessimism, it's armor. If you expect rain, you're not surprised by puddles. Second, when the storm arrives, observe it like a man watching rain from behind glass. You're in that line. The shouting begins. Your pulse races. Your hands sweat. Do not resist the sensations. Observe them. Watch the man scream. Notice your heartbeat. Notice your breath. But remain inside yourself, dry, untouchable, as if the storm belonged to someone else. That space between stimulus and response is where your freedom lives. Third, if the chaos turns to you, if someone points their finger trying to drag you in, set boundaries calmly. You don't need to shout. Shouting only means you've stepped into their game. A brief, firm phrase spoken with serenity is stronger than any roar. We'll continue when you've calmed down. Or I don't accept being spoken to like that. Words like these, delivered with composure, hit harder than anger ever could. Understand this. The storms won't stop coming, but the question is never whether it rains. The question is whether you will be the umbrella or the puddle. Will you stand firm and shelter yourself, or will you be trampled and scattered? When you master your anger and anxiety, you learn something radical. Nothing and no one can snatch away your calm unless you hand it to them. And that, my friend, is where real strength begins, not in domination, not in arguments won, but in sovereignty over yourself. Let me share something personal. There were times in my life when I thought control meant having the last word, proving myself right, raising my voice until others yielded. But every time I won like that, I lost something deeper, my center, my peace. It wasn't victory, it was slavery disguised as triumph. Only when I learned to remain still, to breathe, to let others burn in their own fire without stepping into the flames, only then did I begin to feel free. Seneca said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." Those words are a key. Next time fury rises, give it a moment. Count 5 breaths. That delay transforms fire into embers, and embers cannot burn you unless you pick them up. Think again of Mandela in that courtroom. Think of him smiling slightly while facing men who wanted him erased. His calm was not weakness. It was unbreakable defiance. A reminder that the body can be imprisoned, but the mind, if disciplined, remains untouchable. That same power can live in you, even in the small skirmishes of everyday life. So tomorrow, when the line stalls, when the driver cuts you off, when the colleague snaps at you, remember, stand firm. Don't let their chaos dictate your state. Stay as the sea stays beneath the waves, deep, steady, unmoved. And if you followed me this far, write in the comments a simple phrase, "I stand firm." It's not just a comment, it's a reminder, a declaration. And if this message resonates with you, subscribe now so you and I can keep sharpening this armor together. Because storms will come again, and when they do, I want you to be ready. The storms won't end, but your mastery can begin. And as we step forward, the next question rises. How do you transform this inner firmness into a presence so strong that even your silence carries power? That is where our journey leads next. Moving into the 6th chapter, let me draw you into a scene you've probably lived before. You step into your usual cafe, the smell of roasted beans, the clatter of cups, the low hum of chatter, and then you see him. The waiter who once forgot your order, who looked at you with tired eyes and said with a bored shrug, "You'll have to wait. I'm busy." In an instant, your jaw tightens, your back stiffens, your shoulders rise. He hasn't even noticed you, yet already your coffee tastes bitter. Before the first sip, the day is ruined, because your mind leapt ahead, playing an old script. The reaction came before the moment even existed. But what if today you wrote a new script? What if instead of the usual cold stare, you smiled? You raised your voice just enough to say, "Good morning." Maybe you even asked, "How are you doing?" Something remarkable happens in that moment. The tension doesn't rise, it falls. And then you see it. The heaviness wasn't coming from him. It was coming from you. It was never his face, his tone, his mistake. It was your mind, locked in a loop, reacting before you had a chance to choose. Here's where the Stoics become our guides. They knew centuries ago what modern science has only begun to confirm. The mind is quick to associate, quick to create patterns, quick to leap into judgment. But what it learns, it can also unlearn. At Duke University, researchers ran an experiment. They asked participants to smell something foul, something that made their stomachs turn, while showing them pictures of different faces. Later, even when those faces were smiling or neutral, the brain rejected them. The association stuck. The unpleasant odor had painted those faces with disgust, even when they were innocent. Why does this matter? Because your brain does the same with people in your life. One bad exchange, one careless remark, one wound, and suddenly your mind ties that person to anger, to rejection, to pain. So the next time you see them, even in silence, the spring inside you leaps. You react before you breathe. But here's the good news. The mind can be reprogrammed. If it can learn to hate a smile because of a smell, it can also learn to stay steady where it once shook. It can unlearn the reflex of anger. It can be trained patiently to protect your peace. Seneca said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." He understood what neuroscience now proves. When emotion surges, when you feel the fire push you to lash out, a pause becomes a weapon. That pause is not empty, it is full of choice. Delay does not mean weakness, it means strength. It means you refuse to be a slave to the first impulse. But let me ask you this. How often do you actually pause? Or do you live like most people, jerked around by every memory, every face, every trigger? How many mornings have been ruined because you carried yesterday's bitterness into today's light? Let me tell you something personal. I once had a colleague who seemed to thrive on testing me. A raised eyebrow, a sigh during meetings, a smirk when I spoke. My chest would burn the moment I saw him. Even before he said anything, my pulse raced. For months, I thought he was my tormentor. But one day I realized it wasn't him, it was me. It was my untrained reaction, my mind chained to old stories. When I greeted him warmly one morning, his face lit up in surprise. And for the first time, I walked away lighter because I'd broken the loop. So, how do we reprogram our reactions? Not with grand declarations, but with small, disciplined steps. Step 1. Write it down. When someone triggers you, take a piece of paper. Write the emotion in a few words. Anger, hurt, fear. Seeing it outside your head already weakens it. It shrinks from an ocean to a cup. The act of naming strips it of its mystery. Step 2. Rewrite the story. Stop assuming malice. Most people are too consumed by their own chaos to plot your downfall. That waiter wasn't trying to ruin your morning. He was drowning in his own exhaustion. That colleague wasn't smirking at you. He was battling his own insecurities. When you realize this, you stop being the victim of your imagination. Step 3. Breathe. Yes, it sounds small, but it works. When the fire rises, straighten your back. Drop your shoulders. Take a slow breath that fills your lungs. In that breath, you create a gap between the event and your response. That gap is everything. It is where freedom lives. It allows you to look at the scene through a window instead of throwing yourself into the storm. Step 4. Anchor yourself in purpose. When your life is filled with meaning, petty provocations lose their grip. It's like walking a mountain path while staring at the horizon. The pebbles underfoot are still there, but they no longer look like mountains. When you know where you're going, small slights shrink back to their true size, nothing more than dust. This is what it means to reprogram your reactions. It doesn't mean erasing your emotions. You are human. You will still feel the sting, the heat, the pulse. But it means teaching your body and mind that they do not have to dance to every song the world plays. You can choose silence over fire, calm over chaos, purpose over impulse, and every time you do, you carve a new path in your brain, a new script. Slowly, steadily, you turn from slave into master. Slave to what happens outside, into master of your inner state. That is the power Stoicism offers, not the absence of storms, but the ability to stand untouched in the middle of them. So the next time you see that waiter, or hear that colleague sigh, or feel that reflex leap inside you, pause, smile, breathe, remind yourself, the storm is not mine, the script is not fixed. I can choose another ending. That is how freedom begins, not in changing the world, but in changing your response to it. And once you've begun to master that, the next step awaits. How to carry yourself so firmly that even in conflict, others bend toward your calm instead of dragging you into their noise. From here, let me take you into a scene that might sound ordinary but feels like a battlefield when you're in it. You're at the movies, popcorn in hand, ready to lose yourself in the story. The lights dim, the screen flickers, and then the girl next to you starts talking. Not just a whisper. A full-blown conversation, laughter spilling out, comments tossed at the screen like she's in her own living room. Your first thought is violent. Please, let the earth swallow her now. Your fingers grip the armrest. Heat rises into your ears. The movie fades away and all you can hear is her voice echoing in your skull. But if you pause long enough, a strange realization arrives. She isn't your enemy. She's your trainer. A patience coach sent right into the theater, disguised as an irritation. A pop quiz delivered at the worst possible time to test whether your mind belongs to you or whether anyone's noise can steal it. Now imagine another arena. A neighborhood meeting. The air heavy with tension, the minutes dragging like chains. Finally, it's your turn to speak. You gather your thoughts, begin to share your point, and there he is, the man who argues about everything, the interrupter. He cuts in after every sentence, sharp as a blade, drowning your voice in petty objections. Your face flushes red, your legs tremble under the table. In your mouth sits the perfect comeback, polished and cruel, ready to humiliate him so completely that the room will applaud you. You're already picturing yourself as the victor. But then something shifts. You take a breath. You look at him and, inside your mind, whisper, "Thanks for the practice, champ." It sounds ridiculous, but in that instant, you win a battle more important than applause. You win yourself, because you've turned the moment from humiliation into training. Marcus Aurelius would have recognized this. He would not have seen a rude neighbor or an arrogant man. He would have seen a gym. "This man is my emotional exercise," he might have thought. "The one who irritates me is not an obstacle, but an opportunity, a mirror showing me the places where my armor is still thin." This is where Stoicism cuts deep. We cannot control who crosses our path. We cannot control the girl in the theater, the man at the meeting, the stranger who cuts in line, the colleague who mocks. But we can control how we respond. And it is exactly when your calm is at risk that your true strength is revealed. Epictetus put it with brutal clarity. Difficulties are what show men who they are. That means every person who gets under your skin is also handing you a chance to meet yourself. It's not just an annoying neighbor. It's not just a rude girl. It's a reflection. They show you the weak points in your armor. They press the sore spots in your ego. They trigger the pride that shouts, "No one should speak to me like that." Or the insecurity that whispers, "If I don't win this argument, I am nothing." Or the impatience that insists, "I cannot endure this one more second." So here is the practice. Next time someone interrupts you, before your mouth fires back, ask yourself, which part of me is feeling attacked? Is it pride, fear, vanity? Then shift the question. Instead of asking, "Why are they doing this to me?" ask, "What are they teaching me?" The answer might surprise you. Maybe they're teaching you to listen without reacting. Maybe they're showing you that your gestures betray your anger before your words do. Maybe they're revealing how much you depend on other people's approval to feel secure. What feels like an insult may actually be instruction. Seneca often reminded his students that the insults of others are like training weights. Heavy, awkward, sometimes painful, but precisely the tools that build resilience. Think about it. No one grows strong without resistance. No one becomes patient without provocation. If you lived in a world where no one ever annoyed you, you would never know whether your calm was real or just an illusion. So, practice gratitude, not because the other person deserves it, but because you do. When someone cuts you off, you can silently thank them for the chance to strengthen your restraint. When someone mocks you, you can think, "This is my training ground." When someone refuses to listen, you can remind yourself, "This too is making me stronger." And yes, it will feel fake at first. You will smile through clenched teeth. You will whisper thanks with a jaw that trembles. But over time, that practice becomes natural. Every irritation turns from poison into medicine. Every annoying person becomes a teacher in disguise. Think of them as weights at the gym. Each time you lift, your muscles tear slightly, and then they rebuild stronger. The process hurts, but without it, you remain weak. The people who irritate you are those weights. They break your patience so it can regrow, thicker and unshakable. They are gifts, though they will never know they are giving them. And here is the truth. No one can train for you. No one else can carry the weights of your irritation. You must face them yourself. You must lift again and again until what once broke you becomes easy to carry. So the next time your calm wavers in the presence of another person's noise, remember this. They are not just irritants. They are mirrors. They are teachers. They are your gym. And each time you endure them with grace, each time you choose gratitude instead of rage, you grow into someone unshakable. Marcus wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The girl at the theater, the interrupter at the meeting, the colleague, the neighbor, the stranger. They are not detours from your path. They are the path. They are the way you become stronger than you were yesterday. So whisper it, even when your blood is boiling, "Thank you for the training," and little by little you will discover that you are no longer irritated so easily, because the weights you once dreaded are the very ones that built your strength. And when you master this lesson, the next step appears. Because gratitude is not just about enduring others, it is about transforming yourself so deeply that you can live free of comparison, free of pride, free of the endless battles for recognition. That is where we are heading. Advancing to the 8th chapter, imagine this: a cocoon hanging quietly from a branch. Inside, a butterfly struggles, pushing, twisting, slowly forcing its way out. To you, standing there, it looks cruel. The wings look fragile, the effort endless. You want to help. Your fingers itch to tear the cocoon, to set it free faster. But if you do, you destroy it. Because it is precisely the struggle that strengthens its wings. Without it, the butterfly cannot fly, and so it is with people. Everyone has their own cocoon, their own process, their own timing. Sometimes the worst harm we do is not in our silence, but in our rush to interfere. We call it help, but often it is just impatience dressed in kindness. Now, picture this. Your best friend is in a relationship you know is toxic. The signs are clear. The way his light has dimmed, the way his laughter has thinned, the way he explains things to you with excuses instead of truth. You've told him a dozen times. You've warned him until your throat is raw, and yet one afternoon, after another round of arguments, he looks you straight in the eyes, cold and tired, and says, "Leave it. I know what I'm doing." You stand there, words frozen. Your chest burns, your stomach knots, and as you walk home alone, the bitterness churns. That night, lying awake, you wonder, was I trying to help, or was I forcing the cocoon open before its time? Did my need for him to change outweigh his need to learn by himself? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people whom fate brings you, but do so with all your heart." He wasn't speaking of passive resignation. He was speaking of patience, of presence, of love that does not demand immediate results. He endured generals who made foolish decisions again and again. He bore with advisors who clung to errors despite warnings. Instead of shouting or forcing, he chose to lead by calm, by example, by constancy. He knew that growth cannot be rushed, and wisdom cannot be forced into another man's hand. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your urgency to change someone else is often your own discomfort speaking. You can't stand to see their mistakes. You can't stand to wait for their unfolding. But the Stoics remind us, calm is not resignation. It is strength. It is the refusal to be dragged by another person's haste. J. Acunzo, a modern voice, puts it simply. True influence happens when the other person feels respected, not pressured. Pressure hardens walls. Respect opens doors. It's the difference between pulling at a stem and watering a seed. You can pour water, you can provide light, but you cannot force the stem to grow faster. Try to pull, and you kill it. So what does this mean for us? It means when you see someone stumbling, you must breathe. You must remember, Their path is not yours to walk. Their timing is not yours to dictate. If you want to help, do it like someone who lights a candle in a dark room. You don't force anyone to look at it. You simply let it burn. When they are ready, they will notice. This requires restraint. It means listening even when your blood boils. It means standing steady when everything in you screams to intervene. It means letting others make choices that seem foolish to you, trusting that life itself will be their teacher. And when they finally turn, when they finally ask, you will be there, not with, "I told you so," but with open arms. Think again of the butterfly. What looks like weakness is in fact the very thing that gives it power. What looks like suffering is the secret to flight. The same is true for your friend, your partner, your child, your colleague. Their mistakes are their strengthening. Their delays are their cocoon. And no matter how much you want to intervene, their wings will only work if they unfold by their own will. This lesson is sharp because it forces us to confront our desire for control. We want to mold, to direct, to quicken. We call it love, but often it is fear, the fear that their pain will hurt us too. But the Stoics tell us, let go, accept, love without control, stand present without force. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Think of how much time we waste trying to control the timelines of others. How much peace we lose believing it is our duty to prevent every mistake. Instead, that time could be used to tend our own garden, to strengthen our own calm, to live with dignity while others wrestle with their storms. So here is the practice. The next time you see someone making choices you cannot stand, pause. Say to yourself, this is their path. If your heart aches, channel that energy into your own life. Model the strength you wish they could see. Light the candle. Hold your composure. Because the most powerful influence you can ever have is not in your words, but in your presence. And when they are ready, when their cocoon finally breaks, they will remember that presence. They will remember your patience, not your pressure. They will remember your respect, not your arguments. And that is the kind of help that endures. Remember this, even if their path looks clumsy, even if their choices appear blind, it is still theirs. Your calm depends not on steering their journey, but on walking your own with clarity. Because peace is lost the moment you try to live another person's life for them. So let everyone follow their own path. Because wings that unfold by choice are the only ones that truly know how to fly. And as we move forward, another question waits. Once you've learned to let others walk their way, how do you learn to carry yourself when life itself tests your endurance? When every loss and pain feels like a weight pressing on your chest? That is the next lesson waiting to be faced. Entering the 9th chapter, I want to ask you something directly. How many times today did you wait for someone else's approval? How many times did your chest tighten, waiting to hear a well done just to feel like you mattered? And how many times did you feel small, almost invisible, because no one looked your way, no one replied, no one noticed? That kind of worth is fragile. It's like a glass vase teetering on the edge of a table, one careless bump, and it shatters. Picture this. You post a photo on social media. At first, you're lighthearted. You scroll, you wait, you go about your day. But then, an hour passes. No likes, no comments. The silence of the screen feels heavier than words. You tell yourself it doesn't matter, but soon you're checking again, heart pounding, eyes scanning. Do I look bad? Does no one care? Your stomach knots, your face burns. Anxiety comes roaring like a runaway train, all because of a few invisible clicks. Epictetus would have understood this perfectly. Not because he had Instagram, but because he knew human nature. "Do not worry about what is beyond your control," he said. He lived his life anchored to what no one could take from him, his actions, his choices, his character. He never needed an audience to tell him he was enough. His worth wasn't out there, scattered in the opinions of strangers. It was inside, solid, rooted in what he did when no one was watching. And yet, I'll tell you the truth, you're not alone if you feel this. Even those who today seem masters of their calm have walked this same path of dependence, of aching for approval. Jay Shetty once shared on his podcast that as a teenager he joined the rugby team, not because he liked rugby, not because he wanted to play. He joined because he wanted to be seen as strong, brave, accepted. Every day he put on a mask, performing strength he didn't feel, chasing a kind of applause he thought would fill the emptiness inside. But the more he chased it, the further away from himself he drifted, until one day he realized that performance wasn't strength, it was a cage. Every cheer pulled him further from who he truly was. So I ask you, as one who has lived it too, do you really want to keep measuring your worth in the eyes of others? Do you not see that this endless chase only feeds your anxiety, that the peace you long for will never be found in their clapping hands? It's time to look inward, to remember what the Stoics already taught centuries ago. Your worth is not out there. It is in your choices, your character, your quiet moments of integrity. Here's where the practice begins. First, stop acting just to fit in. If you notice yourself doing something only to impress others, pause. Ask yourself, is this what I want or what they expect of me? That simple question already calms your mind because it puts the choice back in your hands. Imagine you're about to go to a party you don't even want to attend, just so you won't look bad for staying home. Ask yourself, am I going because it excites me or because I fear their judgment if I don't? If the answer is the second, give yourself permission to stay home and watch the anxiety dissolve as if it had never belonged to you. Second, reconnect with who you really are. Jay said that at school he never felt enough, but at home with his mother he always felt loved. That was his anchor. You need one too. Find the place where you know, without any applause, that you are enough. Maybe it's a quiet walk at sunset. Maybe it's cooking your favorite meal just for yourself. Maybe it's sitting in silence, breathing. Go back to those places. Those gestures, those memories. They remind you that your worth doesn't depend on a stage or an audience. Third, shift your focus outward. This is where the alchemy happens. Jay discovered that when he stopped trying to impress and started serving others, his anxiety faded. Contribution became his antidote. When you walk into a meeting, instead of asking, will they like me? Change the question to, how can I help this room feel better? The shift is radical. Suddenly you are no longer a prisoner of their opinion. You become someone who adds light, who carries peace. This is Stoic wisdom in action. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily not to live as if he had 1,000 years ahead. He chose to act rightly in the present moment, regardless of applause or scorn. His worth was never in the Senate's cheers or the people's judgment. It was in doing what was just, here and now, even if no one saw. Think of how freeing that is, to know that your value cannot be stolen by silence. To know that your self-esteem cannot be shattered by neglect. To walk into a room like a rock in the middle of the tide, steady, unmoved, even as waves crash around you. It is not an easy practice. It asks you to cut the strings that have pulled you since childhood, strings of validation, of applause, of fitting in. But once you cut them, you discover a calm so deep that no crowd can give it, and no crowd can take it away. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." And part of bravery is this: the courage to stop performing, to stop bending, to stop begging for eyes to see you. Bravery is knowing your worth in silence, in solitude, in the unseen hours where only you know whether you lived with integrity. So tomorrow, when you feel the knot in your stomach because no one has praised you, remember, your worth isn't out there. It never was. It is here, in the way you rise each morning, in the way you face challenges, in the way you treat others, even when no one is looking. And once you anchor yourself there, the noise fades. Approval becomes a whisper. Anxiety dissolves. You become calm, unshakable, steady, master of your own peace. From here, another step awaits, because once you've stopped chasing validation, the question becomes, how do you live with such clarity of purpose that even suffering itself becomes a teacher, not an enemy? That is where we go next. At this stage, let us step into a fire most of us know too well: anger. It begins like a spark on the stove, so small you almost miss it. But give it seconds, and it spreads, racing across every thought, until suddenly, boom, it has scorched everything in its path. Families, friendships, reputations, burned to ashes in moments. I'm sure you've been there. Imagine you're scrolling through your family WhatsApp group. Suddenly, a cousin writes, "Of course, as always, you only show up when there's free food. Never miss that, huh?" The jab lands in front of everyone. Your fingers tighten, your chest heats. You type with furious speed, building a reply so sharp you can already imagine the silence it will leave behind. Your cheeks burn, your stomach twists. Without thinking, you hit send. The group falls quiet. Later, another cousin answers curtly. Your mother calls, her voice tired. By the end of the night, you realize you've ignited a fire that will take weeks, maybe months, to put out. And all of it began because you couldn't wait 10 seconds before speaking. Now, let me ask you, do you think that ability to bite your tongue, to pause before reacting, can be trained? Psychologists answered that decades ago with nothing more than a marshmallow. In the 1970s, Walter Mischel placed children in front of a single marshmallow. He told them, "If you don't eat it for 10 minutes, you'll get another one." Some ate it immediately. Others waited. Years later, follow-up studies revealed something fascinating. The children who had waited weren't just better at delaying gratification, they showed greater emotional resilience, stronger decision-making, and higher personal success. The moral is simple: anger is also a marshmallow. The question is, will you devour it in seconds, or wait and earn the second reward? If Marcus Aurelius had been one of those children, I believe he could have waited all day, because his entire life was a marshmallow experiment. Betrayal, war, plague, disloyalty, provocations every morning and every night, yet his response remained the same: calm. In his meditations, he reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That's the heart of it. Anger speaks before thought. Mastering it means winning twice, over the world and over yourself. But perhaps right now you feel skeptical. Maybe you're thinking, easy to say, hard to do, and you'd be right. Which is why I want to give you tools, not just philosophy, keys you can carry with you the next time anger rises in your throat. First, anchor yourself. Dan Harris calls this the anchor, and it's exactly that. A rope that keeps you tied to the present when the tide of anger tries to sweep you away. Before you speak, before you type, stop. Take 3 breaths, deep ones. Inhale slowly to a count of 4. Feel your chest expand. Hold. Exhale to a count of 6. Feel your body deflate. Do it again and again. It isn't magic, it's space. And in that space, your choice returns. Picture this. You're driving and someone cuts you off like they're racing toward hell itself. Your pulse spikes. Your hand slams toward the horn. But no, you rest your palms on the wheel. You take those 3 breaths. When you open your eyes, you are still the driver of your own mind. Their chaos did not infect you. Second, scan the body. Anger doesn't hide. It lodges itself in muscle, in bone. The jaw turns to stone. The shoulders creep upward. The chest burns. When anger rises, bring your awareness there. Notice the knots, and with each exhale, release them. Untie the body, and the mind follows. Imagine yourself in a meeting. Someone interrupts, sarcasm dripping from their voice, cutting you down in front of everyone. You feel the fire ignite. Scan, jaw tight, chest aflame. Loosen the jaw, drop the shoulders. Exhale. When you speak, it won't be fire that emerges. It will be calm. And calm disarms more than fury ever could. Third, reframe the fire. To master anger is not to swallow it. It is not suppression. It is transformation. Think of cooking. Raw food can poison, but placed on a low flame, given time, it becomes nourishment. Anger is the same. Left raw, it poisons. Given patience, it loses its venom, becomes energy you can channel into clarity, into boundaries, into action that serves rather than destroys. This is what Seneca meant when he said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." Delay doesn't mean avoidance. It means giving the fire time to become light instead of destruction. So, what does mastery look like in practice? It looks like saying less. It looks like waiting. It looks like sentences that are short, firm, unshaken. Instead of shouting, "How dare you talk to me like that?" you breathe and then calmly say, "I'll respond when you've calmed down." Instead of slamming the horn, you breathe and drive on. These choices don't feel like victory in the moment, but later, when the fire has passed, you will see clearly you won twice. My friend, every time you pause, every time you anchor, every time you scan your body instead of lashing out, you are teaching your mind a new lesson. I am in control. Not anger, not them, me. And so I leave you with a challenge. The next time fury rises, don't reach for the marshmallow. Wait, let the fire burn low, and when you do speak, let it be from clarity, not chaos. If this lesson struck something in you, write in the comments. I choose calm. It's a small phrase, but a powerful reminder. And if you want to keep building these shields of the mind, subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because the final step, what we'll cover in the next lesson, is the crown of all Stoic training. The detail that makes all this inner strength worth it. Entering the final chapter, let me take you into an airport terminal buzzing with noise. The departure boards flicker, the crowd surges forward, and in the middle of it, a friend of mine stood like a storm about to break. He had missed his flight because he overslept. His face was red, his hands slammed the counter, his words sharp as knives. He cursed his luck. He raged at the attendant. He muttered again and again that it was the worst day of his life. For hours he paced the terminal like a volcano ready to erupt. But a few hours later, while he sat in a restaurant with his coffee gone cold, the news broke. That very flight had suffered a mechanical failure. Passengers were evacuated in an emergency. He froze, cup halfway to his lips. The fire in his eyes went out. His shoulders sank, and he murmured quietly to himself, "So was it really bad?" How many times has this happened to you? You were certain a moment was catastrophic, only to discover later it saved you. A boss calls you into the office and says, "You're fired." Your stomach drops. You walk out feeling broken, worthless, yet weeks later you find a job that fits you better than the one you lost. Or perhaps you launch the business you always dreamed of but never dared to start. Months later you look back and wonder why you feared it so much. Was being fired really the end, or was it the push you needed? This is where Stoic wisdom slices through illusion. The other day I read a line from a modern thinker. He said, "If there's no reason to feel good, then there's no reason to feel bad either." Simple, sharp, liberating. Your mood doesn't depend on what happens outside. It depends on how you interpret it. If you call it catastrophe, it will crush you. If you call it opportunity, it will open doors. The Stoics never treated this as a slogan for posters. It was daily training. Marcus Aurelius began each morning rehearsing the obstacles ahead. He told himself, "Today I will meet the ungrateful, the rude, the envious, the unjust, and none of it has to steal my peace." So when offense came, he wasn't surprised. He was already prepared to see it for what it was. Not good, not bad, neutral, empty of meaning until he chose the meaning. This is the discipline, to look at events not as blessings or curses, but as clay. Clay can be dirt in your hands, or the material to shape something new. It depends entirely on the craftsman. So, the next time something shakes you, stop and ask, what would a Stoic see here? Would he call this good? Would he call this bad? That question alone shifts the ground beneath your feet. It forces you to step out of the drama and into clarity. But let me warn you, it is not enough to understand this with your head. You must practice it until your soul feels it. Like a muscle, perspective must be trained. Here is a simple, powerful exercise I use myself. The good or bad journal. At the end of each day, take a notebook. Write down 2 moments that annoyed you or weighed you down. Maybe a co-worker interrupted you in a meeting. Maybe someone arrived late and wasted your time. Maybe your idea was rejected. Write the moment down. Then, in the next column, write what possible lesson or hidden gift could lie in it. Perhaps the interruption forced you to clarify your thoughts. Perhaps waiting gave you 5 unexpected minutes of rest. Perhaps the rejection freed you from a commitment that would have drained you. And if at first you see nothing positive, don't despair. Marcus reminded us, loss is nothing but change, and change is nature's delight. Sometimes the gift takes time to reveal itself, but simply looking for it reprograms your mind. It trains you to stop playing the victim and start standing as the master of your own response. And when life feels unbearable, when your chest tightens and your mind screams, repeat this to yourself. This story isn't over yet, because it isn't. What you call disaster today may become your liberation tomorrow. What you call blessing today may later reveal itself as burden. The story keeps unfolding, and you have the power to decide how you will walk through it. The ancients practiced this not to escape life, but to live it more deeply. Marcus rehearsed in gratitude so he wouldn't be surprised by it. Epictetus, once a slave, reminded himself that only his judgments, not his chains, could imprison him. Seneca counseled that fortune's blows are not curses, but reminders that nothing external is truly ours. So, when the next storm comes, remember, nothing is good or bad until you decide. Every delay, every insult, every loss is clay. What will you shape with it? A prison or a statue of your own resilience. In the end, the victory is not about changing the world to suit your comfort. The victory is mastering your own mind so thoroughly that nothing outside can dictate your peace. To wake each day knowing, my calm is mine, my serenity is mine, my judgment is mine. Life will throw sparks and storms, delays and losses, rejections and surprises. But as long as you remember this truth, no one can steal your peace. Good or bad, it is you who decides. We've walked through 11 Stoic lessons, each one like a shield forged in fire. Principles to guard your mind against anger and anxiety. But knowing is only half the battle. Philosophy that stays in the head is like a sword left hanging on the wall, polished but useless. Knowledge is nothing without discipline. Now we enter the second stage. This is where philosophy leaves the page and steps into the arena, where lessons become strategies, where ideas harden into habits, where you stop nodding in agreement and start training your mind the way a warrior trains his body. For every principle you've just learned, there is a practice. For every practice, there is a reward, a calmer mind, a stronger presence, a freedom no one can steal. So in part B, we'll revisit the same 11 truths, but not to repeat them, to put them to work, to see how they unfold in daily life, in modern battles, in the choices that decide who you become. As we step into the first chapter of this second stage, let's begin with the same battlefield we opened before, your own nervous system, that hidden army inside you that mistakes every delay, every silence, every glance as if it were a predator's roar. You've lived it. The phone buzzes, the reply never comes, and suddenly your chest is a cage tightening around your heart. Or the words, "we'll talk later," drop from your boss's mouth, and you're already rehearsing the disaster. Your brain thinks you're in danger, even when you're just sitting in an office chair. Here's where practice begins, because knowing that your brain lies to you isn't enough. You must train it again and again until the old reflex weakens and a new path forms. Now imagine this. You're walking home at night and a shadow crosses the corner of your vision. Your body jolts, heart races, breath shortens, but then you turn and it's only a tree swaying in the streetlight. The fear was real, but the threat was not. This is the pattern you must learn to break every day, separating the shadow from the beast. The Stoics gave us the tools. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. That's not poetry, it's a command. It means you can teach your brain to pause before it drags you into panic. So how do you do it? Strategy, not slogans. The first strategy is naming. When panic arrives, don't fight it, label it. Say quietly to yourself, this is not a real threat. This is my mind reacting. Write it on a note, keep it on your desk. Modern psychology proves what Stoics intuited. When you name an emotion, you shrink it. It no longer runs wild. You've caught it by the collar. The second strategy is reframing. The story your mind writes is always the enemy. I'm being fired. They hate me. I'm abandoned. Instead, practice rewriting it. Ask, what else could this mean? Perhaps your boss is simply distracted. Perhaps the silence means nothing at all. When you open 3 possible interpretations, you remind your brain that its first story isn't the only one. That loosens its grip. The third strategy is inversion. The Stoics called it premeditatio malorum, rehearsing the worst. Before walking into a day, imagine the delays, the insults, the misunderstandings. Then, when they come, they cannot surprise you. Epictetus trained his students to expect rudeness, so that when it arrived, they were not shaken. You too can do this. Each morning whisper to yourself, "Today, someone will disappoint me. Someone will be ungrateful. Someone will misunderstand me. None of it will steal my peace." The fourth strategy is the breath. It sounds too simple, almost childish, but it is gold. When your mind races, anchor yourself in 3 deliberate breaths. Inhale deeply to 4. Hold. Exhale to 6. In that small ritual, the storm loses its teeth. You've bought yourself a pocket of clarity, and in that pocket, you can choose. Let me give you a story. A friend once told me about his panic in meetings. Whenever the manager paused too long before answering, his stomach flipped. He imagined being criticized, demoted, fired, his whole body flooded with dread. But when he began practicing 3 breaths and silently labeling his fear, "This is not a threat. This is my mind," the panic softened. In time, the pauses no longer crushed him. He had trained a new response, and this is the deeper truth. Your brain is a machine of habits. If it can learn panic, it can learn calm. Every time you pause instead of spiraling, you carve a new track. Every time you breathe instead of exploding, you strengthen it. Over weeks, months, years, the machine rewires, and what once was automatic fear becomes automatic steadiness. The reward? Freedom. No more mornings ruined by silence. No more evenings devoured by what if. You become someone who can walk through the noise of life with the composure of one who sees clearly. The shadows are not beasts. The delay is not disaster. The silence is not exile. So I challenge you tonight. Begin the good or bad journal. Write down 2 moments that shook you. Name the story you told yourself. Then write a new story. What else could it mean? What hidden gift might be there? Do this for a week. You'll feel your brain shift. It will still throw sparks of fear, but you'll be faster with the bucket of water. In the end, mastery begins not in grand victories, but in these tiny retrainings. The moments when you whisper, "This is not danger. This is only my mind." Each time, you win back a piece of your freedom. And as we move forward, we'll see how silence itself, chosen in the hardest moments, can become the sharpest weapon of all. Moving into the second chapter, let me take you back to that sharpest of moments, the sting of an insult delivered in public. The air changes, doesn't it? You feel it in your body before you even find words. Your throat tightens. Heat rises into your face. Your hands tremble slightly under the table. And in your head, a comeback flashes like lightning, so quick and devastating you can already hear the imaginary applause after you deliver it. But here is where the training begins. Because anyone can lash out. Anyone can spit venom. Only a few can stay still, bite their tongue, and let silence speak. And silence, when chosen, is not emptiness. It is a weapon. Now imagine this. You're at a family dinner. The room is warm, filled with laughter, forks clinking, bread being passed around. Then, in the middle of it, your uncle, half joking, half cruel, says loudly, "No wonder you don't have a partner with that personality. Who could stand you?" Everyone hears it. The table goes quiet for half a second. All eyes shift toward you. You feel the flame rise. You already have the perfect reply about his divorces burning on your tongue, but instead, you breathe. You stand, refill your plate with salad, and return to your seat. The silence cuts sharper than any insult could, and slowly you notice it. Their laughter dies. The atmosphere grows awkward. Your calm unsettled the room more than anger ever could. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best answer to anger is silence." He lived surrounded by accusations, betrayals, envy. Yet again and again he chose restraint, because he knew that reacting was surrendering, but silence, that was sovereignty. So how do we train this discipline of silence? It doesn't come naturally. You must practice it like a skill, like a musician rehearses scales until the hands move without thought. The first strategy is the pause. When someone cuts you with words, count silently to 5 before you respond. Not 1, not 2, 5. It feels endless in the moment, but that pause turns fire into ember. Often the insult collapses on itself while you remain untouched. The second strategy is the mirror. If you must answer, let your calm be a reflection. One of the sharpest tools is to ask quietly, "Could you repeat that?" Few people can repeat an insult under the cold light of your calm gaze. And those who do, they reveal their own pettiness for everyone to see. The third strategy is the question, not a counterattack, but a gentle blade. Did you mean to offend me? Or how did you want me to feel when you said that? Simple words, yet they force the aggressor to look at themselves. You stay centered, and they falter. A story. A man I knew once faced constant criticism from a colleague at work. Every meeting, this colleague threw little barbs. The man's instinct was to fight back, to humiliate him in return. But instead, he practiced silence. One day, after a particularly sharp jab, he paused, looked him in the eye, and simply said, "Would you like to explain that further?" The room shifted. The critic stammered. The power balance reversed, not with shouting, but with calm. This is the paradox. Silence looks like weakness to the untrained eye. But in truth, it is strength sharpened to a point. It is mastery. Anyone can shout. Few can stay quiet. Seneca warned that anger drags us lower than the one who provoked us. Silence, on the other hand, lifts us above the mud. To stay quiet when the throat burns is to declare, "I am not yours to control." So practice. Start small. When a stranger cuts in line, don't waste your breath. Breathe instead. When someone mocks, hold your gaze and count to 5. When the urge to strike back rises, let the silence stretch until their own words echo louder than yours ever could. And remember this, you are not swallowing your pride. You are proving your freedom, because the one who provokes and cannot move you, that person learns who truly holds the reins. My friend, the next time words press against your lips, choose silence, choose sovereignty, and you will discover a truth the Stoics lived by. Silence isn't weakness, it is mastery. And from here, we move to the next discipline, understanding that no matter how loud the world shouts, no one rules your peace unless you let them. Advancing to the third chapter, imagine this. You're in line at the supermarket after a day that's already crushed you. Your head aches, your back is stiff. All you want is to pay and go home. Then suddenly the cart behind you slams into your side. A stranger snaps, "Can you hurry up?" In a flash, your blood boils. Words crowd your throat, sharp enough to cut. You're about to unleash everything you've swallowed all day. But pause for a second. If you explode now, what just happened? For that minute, that stranger ruled you. Their rudeness pulled the strings of your mood. They became your master, and you, their puppet. This is the danger Marcus Aurelius trained against each morning. He reminded himself, "Today I will meet the ungrateful, the arrogant, the deceitful." He rehearsed it in advance so that when the moment arrived he could nod, breathe, and remember, their chaos is not mine. Here's where the strategy comes in. You cannot stop people from being careless, but you can refuse to hand them the keys to your inner peace. The first strategy is pre-commitment. Before walking into a meeting, before stepping into a family dinner, whisper to yourself, "Nothing today will steal my calm." It sounds small, but it is a shield. When you expect the jab, the sting lands softer. Preparation turns surprises into expected drills. The second strategy is visualization. Picture their words as soap bubbles. They float toward you, glittering for a second, then pop into nothing. Don't grab them. Don't collect them. Just watch them vanish. Soon you'll realize the insult was only air, empty, unless you decide to breathe it in. The third strategy is quick recovery. Even with training, you will sometimes fail. You will snap. You will shout. You will regret. But don't punish yourself twice. Forgive quickly. Return to your center. The sea doesn't hold a grudge against the storm. It calms once the winds pass. So must you. Think of Socrates. He was once insulted loudly in the street. Onlookers expected him to retaliate. He smiled and said, "If a donkey kicked me, would I sue it?" His calm wasn't arrogance, it was clarity. He knew he could not control the donkey, only his own response. And because he kept his peace, the insult died where it landed. Now, bring this into your life. The colleague who interrupts, the partner who mocks, the driver who cuts you off. None of them hold the reins unless you hand them over. Each time you react blindly, you are giving away the keys to your own fortress. And each time you refuse, you prove that your calm belongs to you alone. This is what psychologist Guy Winch calls emotional hygiene. You brush your teeth daily to prevent decay. Why wouldn't you guard your peace daily to prevent corrosion of the soul? Think of every provocation as dirt. Will you carry it in your mouth, let it rot your spirit? Or will you spit it out, cleanse, and protect your inner clarity? And here's the reward. Over time, people begin to notice. They see you do not flinch when provoked. They see you are steady when others are shaken. Respect grows quietly around you. More important, self-respect deepens inside you because you know you are no longer a hostage to every mood around you. My friend, remember this. Peace is never stolen. It is only surrendered, and you are the only one who can hand it over. Guard it like the most precious possession you own, because it is. So tomorrow, when provocation comes, as it surely will, remind yourself, this storm is not mine. Let the cart bump, let the insult fly, let the sarcasm sting, and walk away knowing you did not give them the keys. That is freedom. That is sovereignty. And from here, we move to the next truth, seeing clearly that not everything in this noisy world is about you. Entering the fourth chapter, let's step into a familiar scene. You walk into a room and two people glance your way, then whisper and laugh. Your chest tightens, your face warms. The thought flashes instantly. They're laughing at me. You replay every detail of your appearance, your clothes, your hair, even the way you walked in. Anxiety climbs like fire up your spine, and yet the truth is simpler, almost cruel in its indifference. They weren't thinking about you at all. They were remembering a joke from earlier. This is the trap of the ego. It insists you are the star of every show, the target of every arrow, the subject of every silence. But more often than not, people are simply lost in their own storms. They don't see you. They don't think about you. And that, my friend, is liberation if you dare accept it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Remove the opinion, and you remove the harm." What does that mean? It means that when you assume everything is about you, you wound yourself with ghosts. A stranger frowns, and you think you caused it. A colleague sighs, and you assume it's directed at you. But when you remove that opinion, the harm disappears. The frown becomes just a frown, the sigh just a breath, neutral, empty. Here is the strategy for breaking this cycle. First, interrupt the story. The mind is a playwright. It invents scripts at lightning speed. They hate me. I embarrassed myself. I'm not enough. When you catch yourself writing that script, pause. Whisper, "This is just a story I'm telling myself." By naming it a story, you loosen its grip. Second, test your assumption. If it's someone you trust, ask directly. Was that about me? 9 times out of 10, the answer will free you. No, not at all. The moment you test your fear, the ghost vanishes. Third, shift your focus. Instead of obsessing over how others see you, turn your attention outward. Ask, what can I contribute here? When you enter a meeting, replace "will they like me" with "how can I make this better for the group?" The energy shifts instantly. You are no longer a prisoner of perception, you are a builder of presence. Consider this story. A young man once told me he hated going to the gym. Not because he disliked exercise, but because he was convinced everyone was watching him, judging his form, mocking his weakness. His workouts were misery. Then one day his trainer said, "Look around. Everyone's too busy staring at themselves in the mirror to notice you." He laughed, and suddenly he felt free. The truth had been there all along. No one cared. They were trapped in their own reflections. This is what the Stoics understood. Seneca wrote that much of our suffering is born in imagination, not in reality. We bleed from wounds that never existed, and each time we believe the world revolves around us, we spin deeper into unnecessary pain. So practice this. When the satellite dish in your mind begins scanning every room for signals, turn the volume down, breathe, remind yourself they are not thinking about me. Even if they are, ask, does it really matter? The judgment of another is smoke. It drifts. It fades. Only your own judgment of yourself has weight, and here lies the reward. The moment you stop imagining yourself as the center of everyone's story, an enormous calm opens inside you. Anxiety dissolves. Conversations feel lighter. Silence no longer feels hostile. You walk through the world not as prey, hunted by invisible judgments, but as a free man, carrying your own worth within. Think of it this way. Other people are living movies in which you are, at most, an extra walking across the background. Their plot is not about you. Their pain is not aimed at you. Their chaos is theirs alone. And when you finally let that truth sink in, life becomes astonishingly lighter. So the next time whispers rise behind you, let them be. The next time silence falls, don't assume it condemns you. Walk steadily, knowing this: not everything is about you, and not everything deserves your energy. That is where serenity begins. And from here, we move toward an even harder lesson, learning to stand firm no matter what storms surround you. As we step into the 5th chapter, picture yourself in a line at the bank. The air is stale, the minutes crawl, and frustration hangs like heavy smoke. Someone ahead begins shouting at the teller, pounding the counter, their anger spreading like wildfire. You feel it in your chest, a wave rising that tempts you to join in. Your hands tighten, your breath shortens. The voice inside says, "Say something. Don't just stand there." And in that moment, you are one step away from losing your ground. But what if instead of being swept into the storm, you became the anchor? What if you chose to stand firm, steady, unshaken, present, while others burned themselves out? Marcus Aurelius knew this test well. Surrounded by betrayal, war, and constant pressure, he reminded himself, If something external disturbs you, it is not the thing itself, but your judgment about it. In other words, the chaos outside is powerless until you allow it in. To stand firm is to block that entry. Here's how you train it. The first strategy is preparation. Each morning, remind yourself that impatience and rudeness will come. This is not pessimism, it's armor. When you expect the blow, you are not shocked when it lands. Whisper to yourself before the day begins. Today, I will meet noise and arrogance, and none of it will move me. Like sharpening a sword before battle, this simple ritual keeps you ready. The second strategy is observation. When the storm erupts, don't dive into it. Watch it. Imagine yourself behind glass, looking out at the rain. You notice the raised voices, the clenched fists, the pounding hearts, yet inside, you remain dry. This is not detachment born of coldness. It is the strength of perspective. By watching instead of reacting, you remember, this storm belongs to them, not to you. The third strategy is calm boundaries. Sometimes the chaos will turn toward you. A stranger's finger in your face, a colleague's sarcasm pointed like a blade. You don't need to shout to defend yourself. A calm, steady phrase is stronger than a roar. We'll continue when you've calmed down, or I don't accept being spoken to like that. Delivered without heat, these words strike harder than any insult, because they reveal control, and control commands respect. Think of Mandela in that courtroom. He stood in front of those who wished him buried, his fate already written in their eyes. Yet he raised his head, spoke with serenity, and declared his readiness to die for what he believed. The power of that moment silenced an entire room, not because he shouted louder, but because he stood firm. Your battlefield may not be a courtroom, but a boardroom, a kitchen, even a crowded line at the bank. But the principle is the same. The world will erupt. People will try to drag you into their storms. The real test is whether you stay upright, like the tree that bends but does not break. Here is the reward. When you practice standing firm, you discover a freedom few ever touch. You stop being a slave to the moods of others. You stop handing your peace to every impatient voice. And those around you, whether they admit it or not, begin to respect the ground you stand on. Because it is rare to find someone who does not sway with every wind. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we are given a short life, but that we waste much of it. And one of the greatest wastes is to spend your hours flailing in storms that were never yours. Better to live with the steadiness of one who knows, my calm is not for sale. So tomorrow, when the shouting rises, when the delay grinds your patience, when the provocation comes, remember this: you are the anchor. The storm will not last, but your composure can. Stand firm. And from this ground of steadiness, we move next to a deeper training, learning to reprogram your very reactions so that even the old reflexes of anger lose their power over you. Entering the 6th chapter, picture yourself walking into your usual cafe. The air smells of roasted beans, chairs scrape the floor, and sunlight cuts across the tables. And then you see him, the waiter who once forgot your order, the one who shrugged and said, "You'll have to wait, I'm busy." He hasn't even looked at you, but already your jaw tightens, your shoulders rise, your coffee turns bitter before it's even poured. This is the old script of your mind. A reflex played without your consent. The moment, untouched by reality, is poisoned by memory. And here begins the training, to rewrite the script. To show your mind it is no longer the master, but the servant. Now imagine you do something different. Instead of glaring, you smile. You greet him warmly. You ask, "How are you today?" Suddenly the tension melts, not because he changed, but because you did. You see clearly then, the weight wasn't in him, it was in you. The Stoics knew this truth well. Seneca said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay. Delay gives space for choice, and choice is freedom." So how do you reprogram what feels automatic? Here is the practice. First, write it down. When someone gets under your skin, don't let it spin endlessly in your head. Take paper. Write the feeling in a few words. I'm angry. I'm afraid. I feel dismissed. Seeing it outside your mind shrinks its power. It is no longer a storm, it is just ink. Second, rewrite the story. Stop assuming malice. Most people are too lost in their own chaos to plot against you. That sigh wasn't about you. That delay wasn't a plan to hurt you. It was life happening in their lane, not yours. Ask yourself, what's another explanation? And watch the heat dissolve. Third, breathe and scan. Anger doesn't live in the air, it lodges in your body. Jaw clenched, stomach twisted, hands trembling. Pause, breathe deep. On the inhale, notice the tension. On the exhale, release it. Each breath is a rehearsal of sovereignty. Fourth, anchor in purpose. When your eyes are fixed on something larger, provocations shrink. Think of it as walking a mountain path while staring at the horizon. The pebbles underfoot don't vanish, but they stop looking like mountains. When you live with clear direction, the petty interruptions lose their power. Here's a story. A man I knew carried deep resentment for a colleague. Every meeting was torment. The smallest remark from this colleague sparked rage. But he began to practice reprogramming. Each time he paused. He wrote down what he felt. He reframed. Maybe he's insecure. Maybe it isn't about me. He breathed through the tension, and little by little, the trigger lost its grip. What once ruled him became just another voice in the room. This is the alchemy of practice. If your brain can learn to leap like a spring, it can also learn to remain still. Every time you choose calm, you lay new tracks. Over time, the old reflex withers, and a new one takes root. The reward? Freedom. No longer a slave to your impulses, no longer dragged into storms that don't belong to you. You become the master of your reactions, not their victim. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. When you reprogram your reactions, you prove those words. You make your mind obey instead of obeying it. So tomorrow, when the old script rises, when your chest burns, when your jaw tightens, pause, smile, write, breathe. Remember, the fire is not out there, it is in here, and you hold the water. If this lesson spoke to you, leave a simple comment. I choose calm. Anchor it in your mind, and subscribe so we can keep walking deeper into these practices together, each one a step toward mastery. From here, we move into the next truth. Learning to see those who irritate you not as enemies, but as teachers. Because sometimes the very people who provoke you are the ones who build your strength. Advancing to the 7th chapter, let's step into a cinema. The lights are dim, the screen glows, the story unfolds. And yet, beside you, someone whispers, giggles, taps on their phone as if they were in their own living room. Your blood surges. The armrest digs into your palm. Anger burns in your ears. You think, why now? Why me? But pause. What if instead of seeing an enemy, you saw a coach, a test delivered by fate, a small exam to measure whether your peace can survive distraction? That person isn't just noise. They are the weight you are meant to lift in the emotional gym. Now imagine another scene. You're at a community meeting. You've waited an hour to speak. Finally, the floor is yours. And yet, each sentence is cut short by the same man who interrupts everyone. Your face heats. Your leg shakes beneath the table. A sharp comeback burns on your tongue. You can almost hear the applause if you humiliate him, but instead, you breathe. You think quietly, thank you for the practice. You hold your ground without exploding. And strangely, you walk away stronger than if you had won the argument. This is where Stoicism reshapes irritation into training. Marcus Aurelius himself faced generals who ignored orders, senators who schemed, crowds that shouted. He wrote in his Meditations, "Difficulties show what men are." Each annoyance was not an obstacle, but a mirror, a reflection of the muscles he had yet to build. Here's how to reframe those who irritate you. First, identify the trigger. Is it your pride shouting, "No one should treat me like this"? Is it insecurity whispering, "If I don't win this, I'm nothing"? Or impatience declaring, "I can't stand this another second"? Each irritation points at a weak spot in your armor. Name it, and you've found where to train. Second, change the question. Instead of "Why are they doing this to me?" ask, "What are they teaching me?" Perhaps they are teaching patience. Perhaps they are revealing how much you depend on approval. Perhaps they are showing you that your gestures betray more than your words. Irritation becomes instruction the moment you flip the question. Third, practice gratitude, not out loud, not with false smiles, but inwardly. Whisper to yourself, "Thanks for the lesson. Thanks for the training." It may feel absurd at first, but over time, the absurdity becomes strength. You begin to see every rude person as a free coach sent by life, and each session makes you stronger. A friend of mine once worked in an office where a colleague never stopped criticizing. Every idea, every presentation cut down with sarcasm. At first, my friend fought back, matching fire with fire. But he left each battle drained, furious, bitter. Then one day he flipped the script. He decided, "This man is my patience trainer." Each jab became a rep in the gym. Instead of answering, he practiced calm breathing, practiced silence, practiced steady gaze. Months later, he noticed something. The critic had lost his power. The irritation no longer pierced him. He had grown stronger without realizing it. This is the hidden gift. Enemies turn into trainers. Irritations become drills. You stop seeing life as an attack and start seeing it as a training ground. Seneca once reminded us that misfortune tests the soul. Without weight, the athlete remains weak. Without challenge, the mind grows soft. So every time someone tests you, remember, they are the dumbbell in your hand. Heavy, awkward, sometimes painful, but precisely what builds muscle. And here is the reward. The more you lift, the less it hurts. The more you practice patience, the fewer people can steal it. What once set you on fire now barely sparks. And soon, those around you see it too. Your calm no longer breaks under pressure. So tomorrow, when someone interrupts, mocks, or annoys you, don't ask, "Why me?" Ask instead, "What is this teaching me?" Smile inwardly. Whisper your thanks, because every irritation you endure with dignity carves strength into your character. And when you've mastered this, you're ready for the next test, letting go of the urge to control the pace of others and learning instead to let them follow their own path. As we step into the 8th chapter, imagine this: a butterfly fighting its way out of its cocoon. The wings tremble, the movements look weak, the struggle feels endless. You want to help. You want to tear the cocoon open and set it free, but if you do, you kill it. The struggle is not cruelty, it is the training ground for its wings. Without it, the butterfly cannot fly. Here is where the lesson begins, because we are often the same with people we love. We see their choices, their mistakes, their slow pace. We want to intervene, to fix, to hurry them. But sometimes what we call help is only impatience in disguise. Now imagine your best friend dating someone who is clearly wrong for him. You see the pain in his face. You hear the excuses in his voice. You warn him again and again until your throat aches. But one afternoon, after yet another argument, he looks at you coldly and says, "Leave it. I know what I'm doing." You walk home with your chest burning, helpless, bitter. And that night, lying awake, the thought comes, was I pushing the cocoon before its time? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people whom fate brings you, but do so with all your heart." Acceptance does not mean apathy. It means respecting the pace of others, even when it drives you mad. The emperor himself endured generals who ignored orders, advisors who repeated mistakes. Instead of shouting or forcing, he chose patience, he chose example, he chose presence. Here is how you practice this discipline. First, restrain the urge to control. Before speaking, ask yourself, am I trying to help or am I trying to hurry? If the answer is the second, step back. The lesson is theirs, not yours to live. Second, lead by example. Influence is never born from pressure. It grows in the soil of respect. When you model calm, steadiness, clarity, you light a candle in a dark room. And a candle does not demand attention. It simply burns until someone chooses to look. Third, create space. When listening, resist the temptation to interrupt with solutions. Let them feel heard. Often it is not advice they need, but the room to wrestle with their own cocoon. Presence itself can be more powerful than 10 speeches. Think of a seed in the soil. You can water it, you can give it sunlight, but if you pull at the stem to make it grow faster, you destroy it. People are the same. Growth cannot be forced. It must unfold. A friend once told me about her younger brother. He wasted years in a dead-end job, refusing advice, ignoring warnings. She nearly tore herself apart trying to rescue him. But eventually she stepped back. She focused on her own path. She stayed supportive, but silent. Years later, he chose to leave on his own. And when he did, he told her, "I wasn't ready before. I had to see it myself." The timing wasn't hers to decide. It never was. This is the painful gift of patience. To love without chains, to accept without trying to own, to support without trying to steer. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And much of that suffering comes from imagining we must carry the journeys of others. But you are not their driver. You are a fellow traveler. Walk your own road and let them walk theirs. The reward is twofold. First, you preserve your peace, no longer drained by battles that aren't yours. You carry your strength for the fights that are. Second, you give them dignity. People change not when forced, but when respected, and respect is the soil in which true influence grows. So next time you see someone stumbling, breathe. Whisper to yourself, "This is not my battle." Light your candle, walk your path. When they are ready, they will see. And when they do, they will remember your steadiness, not your pressure. Because wings that unfold by choice are the only ones that truly know how to fly. And from here, we turn to the next lesson, remembering that your worth was never out there in the eyes of others, but always within. Entering the 9th chapter, imagine this. You post a picture online. At first you feel light, almost playful, but as the minutes crawl, your eyes keep drifting back to the screen. An hour passes, no likes, no comments. A knot grows in your stomach. You tell yourself it doesn't matter, but soon your face is hot, your mind racing with questions. Do I look foolish? Does no one care? One small silence has stolen your peace. This is the prison of borrowed worth. A cage built not from iron, but from the glances, nods, and words of others. Fragile as glass, ready to shatter with the slightest push. But here is the truth the Stoics carried. Your worth cannot live in other people's hands. It is too precious for that. It must be anchored inside you, where no applause or silence can touch it. Epictetus, born a slave, understood this better than most. He said, "Do not seek the approval of others. Seek to control only what is yours, your actions, your character." He had no stage, no followers, no likes, and yet he carried dignity because his value was measured by himself, not the crowd. So how do we live this? How do we shift from craving approval to standing firm in our own worth? First, catch the performance. Ask yourself in each moment, am I doing this because it matters to me or because I want to be seen? The answer is often uncomfortable. You join the party, not because you wish to, but because you fear the judgment if you stay home. You laugh at the joke, not because it's funny, but because you want to belong. The first step is brutal honesty. Every time you notice the performance, stop. Even once a day is enough to begin breaking the chain. Second, find your anchor. Jay Shetty once said that while he felt small at school, at home with his mother, he always felt enough. You need that place, that memory, that practice where you are whole without applause. It might be a walk at sunset, cooking for yourself in silence, reading with no one watching. These small moments whisper what the crowd cannot. You are enough as you are. Third, redirect your focus. When you obsess over how others see you, anxiety swallows you. Flip the question. Instead of asking, will they like me? Ask, how can I serve here? Contribution dissolves the prison of approval. The room no longer feels like a jury. It becomes a place where you add light. A man once told me he dreaded speaking in meetings. His heart raced, his hands shook, because he feared every eye was judging him. But one day, he asked a new question. How can I help them understand the project more clearly? Instantly, the weight shifted. The spotlight dimmed. He wasn't performing anymore. He was serving. And with that, the fear dissolved. Marcus Aurelius warned himself not to live as if he had 1,000 years ahead. He wrote each day as if it were enough, and he did not need senators or crowds to praise him, because his measure was in whether he lived according to reason and virtue in that single day. That was his mirror. That was his worth. So here is the challenge. Next time silence falls after your words, don't panic. Next time your message goes unanswered, don't crumble. Breathe. Remember, their reaction is smoke. It drifts. It fades. Your worth is stone. The reward is freedom. No more waiting on approval to feel alive. No more surrendering your mood to likes, replies, or glances. You walk through the world steady, like a rock in the tide. The sea may roar, the waves may crash, but you remain unmoved. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." And bravery here is not about slaying enemies or conquering lands. It is about the courage to stop performing, to stop begging, to stop bending. It is the courage to stand quietly in your own dignity, no matter who notices. So carry this truth. Your worth is not out there. It never was. It is here, in the way you act when no one is watching, in the way you keep your promises to yourself, in the way you live with integrity, even in silence. And once you master this, you are ready for the next test, facing anger itself and learning to tame it before it escapes your tongue. Advancing to the 10th chapter, imagine fire in a kitchen. It starts as a spark, a pan left too long on the stove, a flicker barely noticed, but in seconds the flame leaps, spreads, and soon the whole room is ablaze. This is anger, a single word, a jab, a delay. And suddenly, your mind is burning, your peace consumed. Here's where the discipline matters most, because once the fire escapes your mouth, it spreads faster than you can control. A single sentence can scorch relationships that took years to build. Picture this. A cousin mocks you in the family chat. As always, you only show up when there's free food. Your cheeks flush, your fingers fly over the keyboard. You craft the perfect reply, sharp as a knife, ready to silence him in front of everyone. You hit send. Silence falls in the group. Hours later, your mother calls, her voice heavy. What began as a spark has now lit a family fire that will take weeks to put out. Marcus Aurelius would have reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. He knew the real strength is not in cutting deeper than your opponent, but in refusing to be dragged into their fire. So how do you master this blaze before it escapes? First, anchor in the breath. When anger strikes, pause. Inhale slowly to 4. Hold. Exhale to 6. Do it 3 times. It's not weakness, it's space. And in that space, choice returns. Without breath, you are a puppet of impulse. With breath, you reclaim the strings. Second, scan the body. Anger doesn't hide. It makes a home in your jaw, your shoulders, your stomach. Find the knot. Feel it. Then release it on the exhale, as if untying a rope. What remains is clarity. Third, delay the tongue. Seneca called delay the greatest remedy for anger. Imagine your words as arrows. Once loosed, they cannot be called back. But if you hold them a few moments longer, you may realize the battle isn't worth fighting. Many fires die simply because they were never fed. Think of Mandela standing in that courtroom, eyes steady, calm in the face of hatred. He spoke not with venom, but with conviction. His serenity disarmed more than rage ever could. A calm voice cuts deeper than a shout. Here's a small practice. When insulted, instead of striking back, ask in a soft voice, "Could you repeat that?" Few can. The heat drains from the moment, and if they do repeat it, they expose themselves more than they wound you. Or reply with a question that holds a mirror. Did you say that to help me or to hurt me? A question asked calmly is more devastating than any retort. It forces reflection where there was only noise. A friend once told me about nearly losing his job. His boss snapped at him during a meeting, questioning his competence in front of the team. His blood boiled. His lips parted with the beginnings of a reply. But he remembered the practice. He breathed. He waited. He scanned his body until the heat loosened its grip. When he finally spoke, it was measured, calm. "Would you like me to explain the details after the meeting?" The boss blinked, nodded, moved on. What could have been an explosion ended in respect. The room saw who held control. That is mastery, not suppression, but transformation. Anger, when delayed, becomes clarity, and clarity speaks with a force rage can never reach. The reward is not just avoiding conflict. It is the steady respect of others. It is the quiet dignity of knowing you rule yourself. It is walking away from the fire with your peace intact, your relationships unburned. Remember this: anger speaks before thought. Mastery waits. To hold your tongue when it burns is to win twice, over the other and over yourself. So tomorrow, when provocation comes, when the flame sparks, breathe, anchor, wait, Let the fire die inside you before it leaps outside you, and when you finally speak, let it be from clarity, not chaos. Because the true mark of strength is not in the shout that shakes the room, but in the silence that steadies it. And from here, we step into the final chapter, where the deepest Stoic truth waits, that nothing is good or bad until you decide. Entering the final chapter, let me take you into an airport terminal, buzzing with noise, restless with waiting. A man storms to the counter, his face red, his fists pounding the desk. He curses his luck. He spits at the attendant. He paces like a volcano on the edge of eruption. He had overslept, missed his flight, and declared it the worst day of his life. Hours later, sipping cold coffee, he sees the news. The very flight he missed was forced into an emergency landing after a mechanical failure. His rage drains in an instant. Shoulders drop, eyes widen, and quietly he whispers, "So was it really bad?" Here is the question the Stoics demand we ask. What is good and what is bad? Or is it simply our judgment that brands events as fortune or disaster? Now imagine this in your own life. You lose your job. The weight hits your chest. You walk out of the office convinced your world has collapsed. Yet weeks later, you find yourself in a new position that fits you better. Or you launch the business you never had the courage to try. Looking back, you wonder, was being fired truly bad? Or was it the push you needed? Marcus Aurelius rehearsed this daily. Each morning he reminded himself, "Today I will meet the ungrateful, the deceitful, the arrogant." He stripped the day of surprise. Offense would come, but he would not brand it evil. Misfortune would come, but he would not brand it tragic. He practiced neutrality. He knew that events are clay waiting for the sculptor's hand. So, how do you train this vision for yourself? First, the journal of judgment. Each night, write down 2 moments that unsettled you. Perhaps a colleague interrupted. Perhaps someone arrived late. Perhaps a proposal was rejected. Then, beside each entry, write a possible gift hidden within it. The interruption sharpened your clarity. The delay gave you quiet minutes you didn't expect. The rejection spared you from an ill fit. Even if no lesson appears, the search itself trains the eye. Slowly, you teach your mind to look beyond the surface. Second, the phrase of power. Whenever trouble strikes, whisper, "This story isn't over yet," because it isn't. What feels catastrophic today may reveal itself as blessing tomorrow, and even blessings may, with time, show their hidden burden. Life is not finished writing, so don't seal your judgment too soon. Third, practice perspective. Imagine zooming out from the scene of your pain. A camera rising higher and higher until your crisis is only a small dot in the vast landscape of your years. Ask yourself, will this matter tomorrow, next month, next year? Most of what we call tragedy evaporates when seen in scale. Consider Socrates, mocked and sentenced to death. He drank the hemlock calmly, not branding it evil, but necessary. Consider Epictetus, beaten and enslaved, who said simply, "We are not disturbed by events, but by our view of them." Their lives were fire, but their judgment turned fire into light. Here is the gift. Once you stop rushing to label events, peace returns, anxiety fades. You no longer chase blessings or flee curses. You walk steady, knowing that life is clay and you are free to shape your response. Think of it this way. When you stop asking, "Is this good or bad?" and start asking, "What can I do with this?" you step out of victimhood. You step into mastery. The clay may be rough, uneven, unyielding, but in your hands, it can still become form, still become art. Seneca wrote, A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. So the next time you feel the sting of misfortune, remember, the polishing has begun. You can curse the stone, or you can embrace the shine it will bring. The victory is not in controlling what happens. The victory is in mastering the meaning you assign. That is the final Stoic lesson. Nothing is good or bad until you decide. And with that decision, you take back your peace. You guard your serenity. You walk into the storms of life with a calm no one can steal, because you are the one who names the storm. True strength is not found in raising your voice, but in the calm you can hold when the world around you trembles. If you have stayed with me until now, let it be a reminder that your spirit is stronger than you once believed. Each time you choose stillness over rage, each time you refuse to let anxiety rule your thoughts, you are proving to yourself that no one else governs your peace. I invite you to mark this moment in the comments with 3 words. Choose calm. Let it serve as both your affirmation and a signal to others walking the same path. If today's message brought you clarity, consider subscribing so that these teachings continue to meet you where you need them most. Together, we can keep sharpening this discipline until serenity becomes your natural state. On the screen is a playlist to take you deeper into Stoic wisdom and daily practice. Step into it with an open mind and see how much lighter life feels when you carry this perspective. Until our next time together, stay steady.